Okay. Well, this clip's going to be on just this last one is going to be on flag burning. There's the preeminent precedent case, Texas versus Johnson, uh, was about the flag burning, and it was a 5-4 decision by the Supreme Court that that's freedom of speech, and this is the reality. This is reality of what's happening right now out there, and so the Supreme Court of the land has stated that that's a form of free speech. The case that was set precedent in 1989 in the state of Texas, and was driven on the case of one person burning a flag in rebuke to President Reagan being as president. And in the decision in the paper and the messages that was sent and their reasoning for why their their um, their vote towards or for or against this vote in the Supreme Court for burning flag as a freedom of speech. Now, this executive order that the president's put into place has its own measurements, but it's not going to stand up to the Supreme Court. I'm ex-military. I disagree with burning the flag, but I'm a person of law and order. And what that entails is you have the right to do what you're doing as American citizens. And right now, currently under the law and protected by the Supreme Court, a person has the right to burn the flag if they as a protest, as a form of protest. Now, I totally disagree with, and I think there's going to be a lot of backlash because the American flag is the representative of the United States, and a lot of people have feelings, emotions behind that, and be it veterans, military, be it families. So that's going to cause a lot of controversy and a lot of violence across the land because people don't want to see burning the flag, and people are burning the flag for that reason. And there's been indication all over the media about that. So I'm gonna stop right there and let you hear more about what's happening in live news on Fox, and we'll talk about this. Leave a comment, statement below. Let me know what you think. It's happening.
You were just looking at that live vantage point there at the White House. That's where we want to take our next story. So, as you know, you were watching President Trump. He had many events today there in the White House, especially in the Oval Office. Remember, he was meeting with the leader of the Republic of Korea. We're getting into that a little bit later on. We have a lot of international headlines to get to. But this has kind of sparked conversation, something President Trump said, specifically when it comes to burning the American flag and what type of criminal penalties he thinks that should bring with it here. So the president today signing an executive order requiring the Justice Department to investigate and prosecute people for burning the American flag. It's an activity that the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled is legitimate political expression protected by the U.S. Constitution, protected by the First Amendment here. So if you didn't catch this earlier today, this was the moment President Trump brought this up in the Oval Office. Let's watch this.
All over the country, they're burning flags. All over the world, they burn the American flag. And as you know, through a very sad court, I guess it was a 5-4 decision, they called it freedom of speech. But there's another reason, which is perhaps much more important. It's called death. Because what happens when you burn a flag is the area goes crazy. But when you burn the American flag, it incites riots at levels that we've never seen before. People go crazy. What the penalty is going to be, if you burn a flag, you get 1 year in jail, no early exits, no nothing.
Okay, so President Trump there kind of elucidating what he thinks the penalty should be via this executive order, though. In the meantime, we do want to bring into the conversation right now someone who knows a lot about this, Chief Counsel with the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, otherwise known as FIRE, Bob Cornrever.
Yeah, that statement there by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, I don't know if that he could put executive orders or anything out there. I don't know if that'll be the Supreme Court would hold that up, or if they try to prosecute somebody under this executive order. I don't know right now because of currently it's a right to express political expression, the burning the flag. Although I totally disagree with that, I can't take the liberties of Americans. They have the right to do that right now, and that was held up by that case, Johnson versus Texas versus Johnson in 1989. So right currently as we speak, I don't. He could push the executive order through, which is the president has done. I don't know how much state level will take in consideration in arresting an American citizen, but let's find out more about this. Um, but right now, it's protected under freedom of speech and as a political act. So I don't know if that's the executive order is the executive order, but I don't know how many states would governors would support that right now currently. But let's hear more about what's going on with this burning the flag. What's your opinion? Leave a comment down below.
He joins me. Bob, good to see you here. I know you've been following this all day, especially because this kind of rears its head every so often in the national discourse here. Let's just start first up, square off with this. How does a president make this illegal unilaterally via an executive order? Can he do that?
Well, he can't do it legally. It's a settled question constitutionally. The Supreme Court has not once, but twice made it clear that not only does the First Amendment protect this burning a flag as a expression of political protest, but when Congress tried to pass a law, that too was found to be unconstitutional. And so you can't paper over that with an executive order.
So this was some while back proposed via constitutional amendment. Obviously, we know that process is much longer than a president signing an executive order. Also, what's Congress's role here? Has the president, do you think, considered all of these options today or no?
It doesn't appear that he has thought it through, because a lot of what he was talking about, I really don't know where it comes from, where he talks about having a one-year penalty and no exceptions. The executive order itself says that they're going to rely on local laws. And if, say, for example, disturbing the peace is violated when someone is burning a flag, then he'll recommend that the Justice Department either prosecute or recommend local prosecution. So that 1 year statement and his assessment of penalties comes out of nowhere.
Sorry for the background.
So I have to ask this. Does any legal scholar, any contemporary of yours think the president has the authority to do this, or are they all on the same page that he does not?
I think by now they are. There was some debate about this back when Congress when the Supreme Court first held that flag burning was unconstitutional, and some suggesting that Congress could then backstop it and pass a law that would be a narrower, content neutral. That was attempted and failed. And then for years after that, there was an attempt to get into the Constitution that would have amended the First Amendment for the first time in our history. That, fortunately, failed as well.
So we're taking a live look there at the White House. How immediate do you think this will be litigated against? Who are the groups that are going to sue? Is FIRE going to sue against this?
Well, it's way too early to tell that, but I think that the days are not going to be long before we see a test of this. I just saw footage earlier this evening of a veteran who was arrested today in Lafayette Park for burning a flag in protest because of this executive order. And so I think it's not going to be too long before we see a test.
Can you kind of elucidate for us as well how this has somewhat already been adjudicated within the courts? The right to freedom of expression, the right to burn an American flag.
Well, it's been litigated for decades in one way or another. If you go back to the 1940s, the question was whether or not the government could compel school children to salute the flag and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And the Supreme Court, in a landmark decision, said, no, you can't force people to respect the flag. And then in the 1970s, there were other cases on whether or not you could prevent someone from using the flag as a form of protest. And the Supreme Court held that no, the First Amendment protects that kind of symbolic expression. And so finally, in the 1980s, we had Texas versus Johnson, which was the 1989 decision in which the Supreme Court held that flag burning is a form of protest that the First Amendment protects. And while the president, in his announcement today, said that it was a sad court, it was only 5-4, it should be remembered that one of the most conservative justices in our history, Antonin Scalia, was in the majority in that case. And the court described this as a bedrock principle of American jurisprudence, that the First Amendment protects against government restrictions, even and especially for speech that we find offensive and disagreeable. And so the constitutional law in this area is really quite clear and rock solid.
I mean, have we ever seen an indication or a scenario in which, from the Oval Office, sitting behind the Resolute desk, a president says, "I'm making a new law that if you burn an American flag, you will get a year in jail"? I mean, that's not how our system works, co-equal branches of government. I thought Congress wrote the laws, Bob.
It's not how any of this works. The president does not write the laws. He doesn't assess the penalties. Kings do that, but not in our country. And that, by the way, is one of the points that Justice Scalia made. He was interviewed a few years after Texas versus Johnson was decided and asked about his decision supporting the First Amendment protection for this kind of expression. And he said, if I were a king, I would gladly prohibit flag burning. But we don't have kings in this country. We have a constitution.
So, Bob Lashley, where do you think this is all going?
Nowhere.
Too early to tell. As with many of these things, once controversies get started like this, ultimately they end up in the courts, they get resolved in the courts. Sometimes it can happen quickly, sometimes it takes years. We have First Amendment battles going on a variety of levels right now because of how active this administration has been, despite issuing one of the first.
Okay, guys. In this on this note, it's going to be a court matter. The president has sent out the executive order, and it's out there now. So we're going to see what happens now. Looks like there's going to be some cases. There's already a bunch of cases, and they're talking about how the president is still like pushing a lot of the agenda out there in a 6-month period, 7-month period. He's serious. Uh, President Donald Trump is serious, and the MAGA movement is serious about what they're doing. And as the media, I'm not taking no sides, but I stated being a soldier, how I feel about the flag. But I would like to know, what do you feel? What is your opinion about this? And let me know with a comment statement down below. Like, subscribe to the channel. I don't know how far this is going to go. I don't know if that's going to be. It's executive order, so that's a federal order that's got to be taken out by the executive branch. But I don't know at the state level what will happen, and I don't know the Supreme Court already made a decision on this, so it's going to be a lot of giving back and forth on this issue. So we'll see. It's going to be a court matter in the state level and federal government level matter. We'll see. What is your opinion? Leave a comment down below. I believe right now it's the freedom of speech. I don't agree with it because I know you know my background. But as for as American, you have the right to freedom of speech. I don't know why a person would burn the flag, but they say it for political reason to push a political point. But that's one of my 2 cents. But I wish everyone the best, and I would like to hear your opinion about what you think. Let me know down below.
Executive orders when President.
We're gonna stop this right here and move on to the next one.